Welcome back. Look, as we stand right now in 2026, the entire architecture of global security has been completely rewritten. We are witnessing a massive transformation away from that old, sluggish, hardware-centric model straight into a highly agile, software-defined reality.
To put that shift into perspective, just think about this number: $48.9 billion. In just one single year, 2025, private venture capital pouring into defense tech practically doubled to hit that staggering amount. So why the explosive leap? Well, because the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. The market caught on quickly, and the financial gravity shifting toward defense tech right now is, quite frankly, unlike anything we've seen in modern history.
Okay, so let's map out exactly how we got to this new reality. In this explainer, we're going to unpack the defense tech gold rush, the age of attritable mass, why software is the new weapon, Europe's defense reindustrialization, AI, lasers, and quantum clocks, and finally wrap it up with the production-first paradigm. First up, the defense tech gold rush. We have officially exited that exploratory prototyping phase of the early 2020s. Just look at the massive jump to nearly $50 billion deployed in 2025, with an even higher forecast for 2026. What that spike tells us is that the private sector is no longer just experimenting in a lab somewhere. They're in execution mode. They are scaling up and building for mass production. It's a literal gold rush, fueled by an absolute, urgent need for rapid modernization. And because of this, the traditional, century-old defense contractors are no longer the only players in town. Enter the neo-primes. You've got companies like Anduril Industries sitting at a mind-boggling $30.5 billion valuation, Helsing at 12 billion euros, alongside Chaos Industries at 4.5 billion. These are highly agile, tech-native companies running software-first playbooks, and they're completely dominating the landscape. It is fascinating to watch these young upstarts outmaneuver the legacy giants simply because they know how to iterate code faster than anyone else. Which brings us to part 2, the age of attritable mass. Real-world realities from recent global flashpoints have forced a massive market pivot toward what we call attritable mass. Instead of building a handful of exquisite, incredibly expensive platforms, militaries today want systems cheap enough to lose in high numbers while still achieving their strategic goals. The Pentagon's Replicator initiative is built entirely on this tectonic shift. To give you a sense of the sheer scale here, Ukraine set a production target of 4.5 million first-person view drones for 2025 alone. That is overwhelming, modern precision mass in action. It all comes down to stark economic asymmetry. You simply cannot sustainably use a multi-million-dollar traditional interceptor missile to shoot down a loitering munition that costs under 20 grand. That's an economic death spiral right there. It perfectly illustrates exactly why traditional platforms are failing the math test of modern conflict. When your adversary can afford to throw 10,000 cheap assets at your one expensive asset, the old math just doesn't work anymore. And drones? They aren't just highly specialized, guarded assets flown exclusively by intelligence agencies anymore. They cover every single echelon of warfare today, from a tiny $1,000 tactical FPV drone actively supporting a small infantry squad on the ground, all the way up to a $15 million loyal wingman flying autonomously alongside manned fighter jets. Unmanned systems are now organic, ubiquitous, and frankly, treated practically like ammunition. You use them, you lose them, and you immediately launch another. Moving on to part 3, software is the new weapon. This is the defining architectural principle of 2026, software defense. Honestly, the best way to think about this is exactly like your smartphone. A modern tank, a ship, or a physical jet is increasingly just a stable, modular hardware shell. The true operational lethality, the actual brains of the operation, comes from the continuous software and app updates pushed to that shell over the air. The hardware just carries the code to where it needs to be. To actually make this software-defined reality work, the entire procurement playbook had to be completely thrown out. The military has officially ditched those slow, monolithic waterfall models of the past. Now it's all about DevSecOps, meaning continuous, tight-knit teaming between the end user and the developer. Prime contractors must derive their value and profitability from software intellectual property and rapid capability updates. They are prioritizing the speed of adaptation over a piece of hardware lasting 30 years without a scratch. Because if the software is outdated, the hardware is practically useless.
Let's cross the Atlantic for part 4, Europe's defense reindustrialization. Faced with the stark realities of modern attrition, The European Union is dramatically financing a massive return to high-intensity industrial readiness. 150 billion euros. That is the landmark Security Action for Europe, or SAFE loan mechanism. It leverages the bloc's incredibly strong credit rating to urgently finance large-scale defense readiness, space protection, and air defense. It is a massive financial jolt designed to violently wake up the continent's manufacturing base from decades of hibernation.
When you break down the grant funding from the European Defense Industry Program for 2026 and 2027, you see a laser focus on clearing out critical industrial bottlenecks. Notice that massive €700 million allocation specifically for industrial reinforcement. That is aimed right at producing energetic components, explosives, and advanced electronics. You also see nearly €300 million dedicated to rebuilding Ukrainian defense capacity, ensuring they have the localized industrial base to sustain long-term operations independently. Up next, Part 5, AI, lasers, and quantum clocks. While Europe clears out its manufacturing bottlenecks, the macro-scale arms race is pushing the very boundaries of physics and computer science. Artificial intelligence has evolved at a truly breakneck speed in the defense sector. We've quickly zipped past basic generative chat assistants meant for office admin right into agentic AI, which are systems autonomously orchestrating complex test plans and dynamic workflows. And the ultimate strategic prize now is sovereign AI, federated, collectively defended models that keep nations completely independent from foreign tech dependencies.
But what about the physical realm? If drones are the cheap offense, directed energy weapons, yes, actual lasers are the cost-effective answer for defense. Systems like the Navy's palletized Locust laser, which achieved a successful carrier live fire back in late 2025, or the planned 300 to 500 kilowatt joint laser weapon systems, they are moving firmly out of sci-fi and into reality. They give militaries a sustainable, almost infinitely deep magazine to shoot down mass drone swarms at a mere fraction of the cost of traditional interceptors.
And then there is this quiet but profoundly disruptive revolution, quantum clocks. They are officially moving from delicate laboratory prototypes to rugged, field-deployable commercial products right now in 2026. Why this matters and what you really should take away from this entire shift is simple but chilling. If GPS gets jammed or destroyed in a contested environment, the modern world goes dark. Planes, ships, supply chains, they all lose their way. But quantum inertial navigation keeps everything running perfectly, completely independent of vulnerable satellites in space. It is the ultimate insurance policy for our digital world.
Finally, Part 6, the production-first paradigm. Because here's the thing, none of this amazing technology, from sovereign AI to quantum clocks, matters if you cannot physically build it when it counts. The Department of Defense is now completely focused on resilience and manufacturing throughput. They are strictly mandating a 2-for production standard to avoid single-point failures in critical components like rocket motors. Plus, they are actively using virtual digital twins to constantly simulate supply chain disruptions, which allows them to solve bottlenecks in the digital world before they ever happen on the real-world assembly line.
This 2026 White House quote captures the crucial shift perfectly. It states, "Speed to delivery and industrial capacity are now treated as core warfighting functions. The era of seeking the perfect monolithic piece of hardware that takes 20 years to build and field is over. They are now explicitly seeking good enough systems that can be mass-produced incredibly quickly and continuously updated over the air. Production itself has become the ultimate deterrent." Which leaves us to contemplate this final question. If algorithmic dominance and the sheer manufacturing mass of attritable systems truly define the future of security, who wins the next era of global deterrence? Is it the side clinging to low numbers of exquisite traditional platforms, or the side that can write code and manufacture at scale faster than anyone else? It's a fascinating new reality out there. Thanks for exploring it with me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.